roll. So Georgia, who I'm picking. I love the family atmosphere and the way they handle business education.
What's up, DawgNation? I guess we're going to call this Commitment Week. Georgia is on a commitment spree, and all the cameras here in the studio are telling us about that. Before the Hedges, Georgia adds a couple. Like, since the last time we visited you guys on Wednesday night on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger, Georgia had 6 commitments in the 2025 class. Today, that number jumps up to 8, and 8 is not going to be enough for DawgNation, but it might be for the next couple of days. Guys, welcome in. It's Jeff Sentell here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. Big news today. Lots of big news today. Georgia is riding the wave of momentum from G-Day, the 2020 tie. They get a big pickup on Saturday, and Darren Ikinnagbon out of Hillside, New Jersey. The Comet is going to be a Bulldog. We've got a great interview with his head coach, Barris Grant, at Hillside High School today, part of our Big Five on Before the Hedges. You want to hear from the father of new Georgia commitment, Ryan Montgomery. We got that for you. You wanted to see some clips of Stefan Shivers. Stefan, the clips that earned him the Georgia offer last June. And then also he was named one of the top 10 performers at the Under Armour Regional Tour Stop in Nashville this past weekend. We've got G-Day. We're going to talk about G-Day, who made it, which visits went well. How did Georgia help themselves over the weekend? We're going to get into all that. But first, we got to kind of tout and applaud some creativity in the 2025 class, because it just seemed like last week's show, when we were talking about Mason Short and Georgia on My Mind and the Ray Charles shout out. Well, now, this week, we've got even more. We've got Ryan Montgomery, newly christened, newly minted Georgia commitment. I believe he's probably right now having a celebratory dinner with family after his big day, after he chooses Georgia over South Carolina, Florida. He was actually scheduled to visit South Carolina this weekend for his spring game. The last school he visited was Billy Napier at Florida. But the Dogs swoop in and get the commitment from the nation's number 14, number 15 QB, depending on whether you're an on-3 industry ranking person or whether you're a 24/7 sports composite person. And then Ryan had a little bit of theatrics here today in order to kind of show off his commitment to the Georgia. You thought you liked Mason Short? Let's take a look at what Ryan Montgomery did here as the first part of our Big Five, our first one here tonight on our show on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. You want to see, maybe you hadn't seen it yet, maybe you want to see a replay. Here's how Ryan Montgomery committed to the G.
For the next 3 to 5 years, I will be committed to the University of... Wait, hold on.
And there you have it right there. That is kind of the last image of there was Ryan holding Winnie. Winnie kind of stole the show. That video there is, we'll properly credit that to the Toledo Blade, newspaper, regional newspaper in Toledo. Toledo is probably about 45, 50 minutes away from Findlay. There's Winnie. It was a borrowed Bulldog. We're going to excuse him about the all-white thing because maybe folks from Ohio don't really know that about the all-white English Bulldog. The Montgomery family is a great family all around nonetheless. Great people to work with. Winnie, look at Ryan Montgomery holding up Winnie right there. That's pretty cool. Some interesting things about Ryan, and I said one of our Big Five, we'll have a conversation with his father later on in our show. But things to know about Ryan Montgomery if you need a quick catch me up, you want somebody to spill the tea really fast. 4-star quarterback, older brother is at Ohio State. He was an All-American offensive lineman. Can you believe that, folks? When Georgia meets Ohio State, it seems very likely in the next 2 or 3 seasons, maybe 4 seasons, that the Montgomery brothers will be on different sides of that field, different sides of that rivalry. Older brother actually helps really a lot for the Montgomery family to understand the nuances of the recruiting process. Ryan was offered by Jim Harbaugh going into his freshman year. So before Ryan had played a down of high school football, Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, some would call him a quarterback Sherpa, a quarterback whisperer. We're going to give Jim the benefit of the doubt no matter what everybody thinks about him tonight on our air. Jim Harbaugh knows what a quality quarterback looks like. He knows the way to play the position. He played there. He offered Ryan before his freshman year in Findlay, Ohio. Findlay High School is also the home of future NFL Hall of Famer Ben Roethlisberger. Ryan actually broke Roethlisberger's single-game school record of 491 passing yards in a game and also 6 touchdowns in a game last season. So Ryan Montgomery announces his presence as a dog with authority and also some creativity. Now I'm going to go to our resident style expert, our resident coolness expert. That would be the amazing Miss Mansell, Kaylee Mansell, behind the glass in our studio today, helping to produce our show. Now, Kaylee, you've had some good contenders of recently. You got Ryan Montgomery today. You had Mason Short a while back. How do you chop up who so far has the best commitment moment in the 2025 class?
Well, you know I'm a sucker for the classics always. I love seeing the Bulldog. However, since Mason Short's commitment, I have not been able to get Georgia off my mind. I mean, I was waiting on somebody to use that, and it stuck with me, and I think it was just perfect in time for Masters Week because Masters loves to use the Georgia on my mind sound, and now it's coming full circle. So I think Ryan Montgomery did a good one, but I think Mason Short had a great one.
So currently, the coolness rankings right now, the marvelous Miss Mansell rankings, Kaylee gives the nod to Mason Short. I think she's got a thing for homegrown dogs, maybe. Just the home state guys respecting the state, respecting the traditions. But got to admit, I do think Ryan did a very good job with his commitment ceremony today. Moving on to number 2 here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. Our second segment, you guys have had 2 commitments since G-Day. They put the ball down and played the game, but we also had some big names there at G-Day. DawgNation was there. We took some video. We took some photos. Let's take a look right here at some of the names kind of that stood out. If you guys are part of the podcast, I'll do my best to kind of paint the picture like Mr. Munson. Right there is 5-star defensive lineman Justice Terry. Justice is currently committed to USC. Folks, I think that visit went well for Georgia. I think some seeds were planted. This is going to be a long and contested recruitment, but I do think the Dawgs had the type of visit that really needed to get them back in the shooting match right there with Justice Terry out of Manchester High School. You see right there, that young man in the plaid. Some folks told me online that he already reminds them a little bit of Nolan Smith. That's Travis Smith Jr., no relation. He was a big visitor there this past week. He told me that the energy at Georgia is something that stands out. Look at that, the old school Sadie shirt. That guy right there was Dijon Lee Jr., big barrel-chested corner. Guys, folks, right there is Carter Lucky. That's the younger brother of Lawson Lucky. That's the Georgia legacy. He's a 4-star in the class of 2026. Look right there in the background. You see Jaden Perlotti, hemming and hawing. Right there in the middle, that is Elias Williams, the 5-star tight end. Guys, if I had to say where Georgia helped itself the most with a single visitor, might have been Elias Williams. You saw Travis Smith there. Here's Jaden Perlotti. Came back to Georgia, had himself talking and in the ear of a lot of guys. Again, that's Dijon Lee, 5-star cornerback, Mission Viejo, California. Big visit there. He seemed awfully chummy with guys like Perlotti and Barbour. Check out this guy right here. This is Todd Robinson at Valdosta High School. He's a quarterback/athlete. Georgia looks at him as a running back. Josh Crawford came over and dapped him up in the middle of pregame. Right there's Jared Curtis, the 5-star quarterback, class of 2026. The man of the hour for at least G-Day was Darren Ikinnagbon. That guy right there was probably hours away from announcing his public commitment to Georgia. Look here, it's Ekene Ogboko out of Garner, North Carolina. Younger brother of Georgia, freshman defensive tackle Nnamdi Ogboko. Georgia's kind of his leader coming out of that, or one of his very top schools. Elias Williams there just once again. He had a front row seat. You see Mr. Ogboko again at South Garner High School in North Carolina. Really liked the Georgia visit. He said it was really cool to see his older brother's name on the back of his jersey. On the right there, that's baby Brock, Mark Bowman, 2027 tight end. On the left, Ethan Barbour, you know that guy. He was back in Athens talking to a lot of recruits. You see another look there at Jared Curtis, Georgia quarterback commit, 2026, the number one quarterback in the country for that cycle. Check out this guy, Marcus Harrison, 2024 signee out of St. Francis, upstate New York, Hamburg, New York. He was in town for G-Day, got to check all things Georgia out. Darren Ikinnagbon, Georgia gave him another front row seat, really up close in the VIP. If you guys saw that story on DawgNation.com over the weekend, I'm calling it Sanford West in terms of the big names that are being hosted in Kirby Smart's West End Zone. You see that guy right there, Leo Delaney? He's a top 50 overall offensive lineman in the class of 2026, same high school as David Sanders. Mark Bowman again right there. They call him Baby Brock, out of Mater Dei High School, Santa Ana, California. He even wears number 19 for his team. There you go. That was the video on the loop. Some of the big names at G-Day. We're going to cover a little bit more in our top targets section, but I really think Georgia did more than hold serve with the interest with Justice Terry. I think Elias Williams got to see a refresher, an F5, so to speak, of what made him commit to Georgia in the first place. So I think right now Georgia put itself in pretty good shape there with continuing to hold on to the commitment of Elias Williams. Those are your weekend visits. Let's check out this. Move on to number 3 here in our Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. How did Stefan Shivers get his UGA offer? Guys, remember Stefan Shivers? He committed to Georgia a couple weekends back out of Humboldt, Tennessee. Humboldt is an indicator for a very humble young man. But back in June 28th of 2023, I believe, he came up to Georgia with his father. He came up to Georgia with some other members, and he camped, and Georgia got a chance to look at him. And I was told basically from that moment, Trey Scott really wanted him to be in the class, and really Stefan Shivers and his family wanted him to eventually wind up being a Dawg. Let's check out some of this video right here. If you ever wanted to see kind of little insidery stuff here about how Georgia identifies a prospect, a 3-star out of Western Tennessee, check it out right here. I think we've got, let me see, the video. Kind of having some difficulties here with the video, but like Stefan really came to Georgia for a camp. That's kind of like what Georgia does. They bring in their elite guys for camps, and Stefan actually got to work against some of the Georgia's top offensive line targets in the class of 2024 and 2025. I believe David Sanders Jr. was actually at that camp as well. So you got to see, sorry this video we prepared for you can't pop up tonight, but you got to see Stefan kind of working, going through drills, working through bags. You saw him kind of getting some, really upfront coaching about how to strike the blocking sled, how to move his feet, how to explode coming out of his stance. You saw him working and kind of really ripping through some guys. He went to the Under Armour camp in Nashville this past weekend, and Stefan, he was clocked at about, I believe I was told, 5.38 in the 40-yard dash. So he's not Jordan Davis fast, not just quite yet, 4.8 speed, but he was 6'4", 6'5", 355 pounds. He had big hands, measured really big on hands. Also, he was named for, I believe it was for On3.com or the Underclassmen Report. One scouting agency, one scouting service rated, not only did they rate Jared Curtis the number one prospect at the camp, they also rated Stefan Shivers as one of the top 10 overall prospects at that camp. You're talking about a guy that just a couple weeks ago became the 6th commitment in Georgia's 2025 class. He's out of Tennessee. big get for Georgia. I'm going to view him as important to Georgia's class as all the other 5-stars, as any 5-star that Georgia could get in the 2025 class. That's how important Stefan Shivers will be ultimately to the way Georgia plays defense and to the way Georgia kind of builds its trench monsters underneath Trey Scott. We had a great conversation with him last week here on Before the Hedges. There we go. We got some video right there. Look at the big man. We're sitting here working. See, we're camping too. Watch Stefan Shivers kind of there. Of course, if you want to nitpick and look at some things, Stefan, coming off real high, still very raw. You're talking about a basketball player right here. Look at him right here, kind of going through some things there with a stance. They want him to kind of fire up, kind of explode a little bit more off the line. You look there and you see his second rep, much better. You got a Georgia assistant coach there really clapping him on and urging him. He's got a catapult on him right there where Georgia's monitoring kind of how fast those guys are moving while they're in the midst of the camp. You see him right here. You got another hitting the sled drill. You want to see the pop. You want to see the strike. You want to see the explosion coming off the ball here. And here he is going through some more bags, also ripping on a pad, taking off on a pad. Look, this is probably a great way to judge explosion and agility. This is the pro agility drill to shuttle the 5-10-5. You see Stefan Shivers working there, looking pretty good. And here's kind of the after picture. Here's him kind of working at the Under Armour camp over the weekend in Nashville. You see him coming off the ball. Had a little bit better angle on this. We would kind of zoom out a little bit, and you'd be able to see kind of how his pad level, the way his ball get off is looking a lot better than it did maybe from that initial Georgia camp back in June of 2023. But really appreciate Kaylee putting the life support on that video, getting the defibrillator out, and getting us some good video of Stefan Shivers working out. That's a good part of our DawgNation's Big Five here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. That was number 3. Now we got some back-to-back DawgNation conversations. You want to learn a lot about Darren Ikinnagbon out of Hillside, New Jersey. Did you know that the young man was born in Italy? He's of Nigerian descent. He speaks multiple languages, Italian, English, some native dialects in Nigeria. You want to learn a little bit more about Georgia's latest war daddy in the class of 2025 in that Wolfpack room for Chidera Uzodiribe? Sure you do. We're going to bring it to you right now here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger.
Darren, other than he's just the next great Georgia Bulldog?
When I met him in school, okay, so Darren is he's not your typical American football player. He didn't play Pop 1 or anything like that. He's a Nigerian kid from Italy, and he's just a big boy when I first met him. And what impressed me is him being an honor student.
Wow.
I thought that was even before he even put the pads on, I thought that would be the biggest help in his recruitment, is him being a serious student.
Hold on, he's Nigerian, but he's from Italy. Was he born in Italy?
He was born in Italy.
What went through your mind the first time you saw him physically? Was that like great googly moogly, that's a war daddy, or what went through your mind?
He passed the eye test before he knew what the eye test was. He was as a freshman, he was about 6'4", maybe 180 pounds.
Uh-huh.
And just tall, lanky, and rangy. I seen him in the hallway. Told him to call his mom because he's going to be late coming home. He's going to work that after school. That took about 2 months. He completely bought in because he was, if you asked him, he thought he was a basketball player.
Wow, of course.
So he bought into it as a sophomore. We had a really good nose tackle at Iowa State right now. Kind of paired those guys up in like a rush group, and he kind of took it off from there. What was his biggest, expedited his development the most is as a sophomore, he didn't play basketball, he wrestled. And that changed him.
Wow. Understood leverage a lot better, understood all that stuff. Is that what helped him?
Tackling, body lean, because he's always an athletic kid, and he plays with great bend. But, making a two-leg shot in a wrestling match is like making a tackle in a game.
Yeah.
So from there, if he's 180 as a So at the end of his freshman year, last year he played at about 220. He's gained 30 pounds. Since then, he's about 257. And he's a young kid. He's 16.
When does he turn 17, Coach?
July, I believe.
Wow. And he is like 6'6", 250 right now, 257? Is that what is he?
6'6", and a quarter, 257 pounds.
Wow.
So
what was it like when he got his first offer, Coach?
Oh, dude, it was mind blown. Mind blown. I told him it was going to happen. I said, if you do the right things, things like that happen, but you got to go and play. And so he had a great year, and then he got 1, he got 2, and then he started getting the schools he started dreaming about. Because here in New Jersey, schools like Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame's those dream offers. You'll get your Rutgers, not downplaying Rutgers or Syracuse or Virginia Tech, but there's a difference between when you have the elites. That means it's your elite.
I think you were there. And immediately coming out of that, he's like, hey, Georgia's my number 1 school. And he's like, I'm going to visit in April for G-Day, and then I'm going to go take an official. And this was at a point when some kids are like, I got a top 15. I'm sorting through 9 schools for my official visits. I got 4 teams tied at the top. And it was kind of refreshing just talking to him and dealing with him like that. Is that just Darren, or is he just look at things different than a normal American football player, like you said?
No, that's just him. He is not very wishy-washy, and so when he likes something, that's what he's going to put everything into. It's a breath of fresh air for everybody because there's no bull around it. He's not going to let the recruiting process make him go mad. So I think
did you know? No, go ahead, please. Please go ahead.
I think one thing that Coach Smart is getting is the football players are serious about football and serious about school.
Coach, did you know after that first visit that he's probably going to be a dog? Was it that obvious?
It's different in the SEC.
Yeah,
it's different. So once you visit, if you visit some ACC schools and then you make your way down to Athens, you see the difference compared to, and not a lot of schools compared to UGA.
Coach, when you guys were going down this weekend, did you have an idea that he was going to go ahead and commit early, or was it possible?
I had an idea.
Did you?
Yeah, they would have to. The stadium would have to crack in half for him not to commit this weekend.
Wow, never heard it quite put like that.
Had to laugh. You heard me chuckling there at that one. The last thing we asked him is he said, I said, obviously it seemed like Darren was kind of trending to commit to Georgia. He named Georgia as his leader, had no problem naming him as his leader. He said way in advance an official visit when that was the only official visit he had set. He had Georgia's number 1 school. He said he was going to visit Georgia for G-Day. Did you hear what Coach Grant? And now listen to this. Coach Grant played at Mississippi State, so he understands SEC football. He's up in New Jersey. He's been honored as kind of an area coach of the year, has earned some coach of the year honors. And he was like, yeah, we knew he was probably going to commit. He said the only way he wouldn't have committed to Georgia this past weekend was if the stadium cracked in half. Never, like I said there to Mr. Grant, Coach G, I don't think I've ever heard it quite like that before, and I've heard it phrased a lot of ways. And, a lot of things with Darren that sticks out there. Do you guys know that – I know you read the story, you see the rankings, but Darren is 6'6" and some change, 257. He's just 16. Cool. Got to give you 2 little backstories. Number 1, I was told Darren was like in middle school, and he was very smart for his age. He is an honor student. That's really going to help him really well in terms of understanding Georgia's defense and being a great football player in college. But the principal at his school saw him, and number 1, he was 6'4", 180 already, kind of as a 8th grader, I believe. And then he was also very smart for his age. So the principal at that school just said, "You're moving up." Like you've heard of 8th graders, here in the South, there's the term redshirt 8th grader, where a lot of promising football players, they'll repeat their 8th grade year. Maybe they'll go to a private school after a public school or vice versa, and that'll give them an edge kind of socially, physically, compared to kids there. They'll be older than most of the kids in their class that they're playing against. Well, Darren was actually classed up from an 8th grader to a 9th grader, so he's actually sprung forward with his eligibility clock right there. Probably still should be a rising junior, not a rising senior in the class of 2025. And the other thing was, like, he really didn't pick up football from basketball. You heard Coach mention he saw him in the hallway, and he immediately said, I want you to call your mom and tell you you'll be home late because you're going to work out with me, and you're going to work out after school. But, like, very basic stuff to begin with. They were going through drills in practice, Coach Grant told me, and they were kind of stressing a concept, and, like, every time, he kept doing the opposite thing, and they finally just slowed it down from what they wanted, the opposite thing from what they wanted. And they kind of finally slowed it down, and he said, son, do you know what contain means? Now, football guys, they know what contain means. That's the way, the edge guy has to, kind of contain and keep everything inside the play so they can't bounce it out, kind of set the edge. And it eventually dawned on the coaches that they're like, hold on, do you even know what contain means in football? And Darren was like, no. So they were like, let's take this all the way back to core fundamentals. And they had to teach Darren about contain on the high school practice field so he could, get the concept, so he could rep it out better, so he could become a better football player. And that guy right there became the 6th commitment of Georgia's 2025 class, really right after G-Day on Saturday. So Georgia got a big get. I believe it was exactly the kind of edge target that Chidera Uzo-Diribe had wanted all along. So Coach Uzo, sometimes some people call him Coach Chid, some people call him Coach Diribe, some people call him Coach Uzo. Tonight here on Before the Hedges, we're going to call him the guy that got the member of his wolf pack that he wanted very high up on the board. He got Darren Ikinnagbon. Get used to that name, DawgNation, because he's going to be a good one between the Hedges and Athens. All right. Number 4 leads to number 5. You want to hear from the father of Georgia quarterback commitment, Ryan Montgomery. If you're just joining us, we kind of showed the really cool way how Ryan committed to the G. Well, you want to hear a little backstory. You want to hear a little bit about the process of how Ryan became a Georgia Bulldog. Folks, it was really kind of Georgia all along. It was just very complicated. I kind of went through that on our DawgNation.com commitment story about how Ryan committed to the G. If you'd asked the family maybe a month ago, they would have really had no idea that it was going to be Georgia, but they wanted it to be Georgia. What does that mean? How can you learn a little bit more about the Ryan Montgomery commitment? We got you right now on Before the Hedges.
Mike, can you describe the reaction between you and your son when everything moved in your direction? And do you guys sit around the table? Is it text messages? Is it, hey, we got to talk about this? Like, how does it unfold? But also, I'm mostly concerned in how you felt and how you thought Ryan felt when everything kind of just became gravy, and that was what you guys kind of wanted all along.
Yeah, you know what? I was super excited because I always felt that Ryan wanted to end up in the elite program. And what I mean by that is a traditional winner that can sustain winning. And in my opinion, there's only 3 or 4 schools without naming those that can do that and have done that. And Georgia obviously fits that bill. So I just know, Ryan's kind of got an elite mindset, I would say. I think he's very talented as well. But I know people pick apart those talent sides of it. But between the ears, I'd put him up against anybody. And that's just, mainly his work ethic and his smarts, God-given smarts as well. So I was super excited, but I also know he's a loyal kid. So, he had to process that when they kind of went all in and we had started to have a good feel for another school, and we had another visit coming up, to be honest, that was planned beyond this commitment date. So once Ryan kind of processed that for, 2-3 days, we would sit down and talk about, hey, what are your thoughts? And he said, I want to go to Georgia. Done deal. So I said, great. And it was fun as parents to watch him trying to get that off his chest. And then now he's kind of had a little pep in his step ever since that moment. And obviously it's fun calling Coach Smart. We called Coach Smart. We called Mike Bubba. We called Gummy Van Gorner, who I've known for a long time. And also a nice side story is Brandon Strader. That's a big deal, too, because Brandon recruited both my boys very hard at Clemson, and we got a lot of respect for Brandon. And I'm very thankful that he's at Georgia now as well.
Like, he said he wouldn't mind waiting. He said he wouldn't mind doing like what Carson Beck had to go through. He said he wouldn't care who else is in the room. I'm sure he won't care if Georgia brings in a portal guy because he knows Georgia's supposed to bring in the best, and he just wants his shot. Do you feel like that mindset for him is not only good for right now, but good for the future as well?
I think it's 100% accurate. And you're right. We know that, one thing I tell them as a dad, well, all my kids, is that the only thing I can promise you is that you're going to face adversity, right? So it's all about how you respond. I mean, obviously, hopefully you're successful, hopefully, and you will be in life and at times, but you got to be able to respond to adversity, especially with Ryan at his position. And this recruitment, it's been a lot of adversity. There's been some lows along the way, but he's a pretty even-keeled kid. He's confident in himself, and he knows that he's going to put the work in. And what he's excited about at Georgia is, again, the way that they go about their practices, about their film study, and the players that they have. So he's excited to have elite kids around him and elite kids to push him. To your point, Jeff, we know it's Georgia. They're going to take the best quarterback behind them and the best quarterback in front of them, and that's what our expectation would be. And Ryan will confidently compete with anyone. And you're right. He knows that it might take a little bit longer out of Georgia, but that's the price you pay when you're going after national championships again. Sustainable national championships, not just like a flash in the pan.
Down is watching Georgia practice, grind, the athletes, the bodies, the skill level, and Ryan looking at that and saying, I have to try to be a part of that. Is that really what you could boil this all down to?
I would say absolutely. Because it's a unique practice, and not everybody gets to see that. I know you have and other recruits, but it's not for everybody. I could also see where you go to that and you're like, what is this, right? But what I just kept coming back to is like, these guys just won the national championship like the first time we went down there. And I'm like, they're acting like they've never won anything, and they're fighting and scratching to get to the top. Well, they're at the top, so there was zero complacency, right? And Ryan loved it. So you're exactly right. I think that's where it was like, man, if we get to a place like this would be a pretty cool experience.
In base. What do you want folks to really know about Ryan?
Yeah, what they're going to see with Ryan is he's a very, very hard worker. He'll fit the culture very, very well. He's uber talented. He's always been talented. He's a kid that's good at everything, like most quarterbacks are, all different sports, and super competitive. So they're going to be impressed with the way he carries himself when he gets to campus and the time he puts in. So he'll be a great fit for the culture. He's looking forward to building rapport with recruits alike that are committed and that they're going after. He's not a very, very loud kid. He will be when he needs to be, but just know that he's vocal to who he needs to be vocal to, and he will be one of the hardest workers on the team. I'm very confident in saying that.
All right, guys, there you have it. Really good, insightful stuff. We'll have more about that on DawgNation.com. But answering a few questions I see showing up in the YouTube thread, Ryan Montgomery will be an early enrollee in Athens. Same thing for Darren Ikinnagbon. They will both be early enrollees in Athens. They'll be December grads, show up in January. Ryan is actually going to take his official visit to Georgia, that kind of loaded A1A Alpha weekend, May 31st to June 2nd. He will probably, if the staff needs him, come back to Georgia for maybe another trip in June if he needs to help recruit some guys. And, one thing we wrote about DawgNation, and, there's a lot of debate. I get all the debate. This 2025 quarterback puzzle, the Tetris here has kind of been crazy. They're rated the way they're rated, but I thought Julian Lewis would have a great career. Georgia's a great player. Matt Zollers was also a very highly rated quarterback. But there's something about Ryan. If you listen to what his father says, they know Georgia's going to bring in a more talented, try to bring in a more talented quarterback before him and after him. They know they're going to be sustainable winners. They know the SEC is where he wanted to be. And as I wrote on the pages of DawgNation.com today, it can be debatable who's the best quarterback here. between those three. The rankings say one thing, but in terms of the best possible fit for Georgia, nobody can make the argument with any credibility that Ryan Montgomery is not a great fit for the University of Georgia. Georgia kind of didn't have to really, they didn't have to really come out of their zone a little bit about what they've been successful with, perhaps with an NIL offer, perhaps with increasing its NIL offer. I don't think Georgia, Ryan had said, it would be great, to just be on the practice field developing it at Georgia. He said if he doesn't play year one, year two, he knows, kind of like Carson Beck, and the Georgia staff has made comparisons in his game to Carson Beck. First of all, these guys are both kind of football obsessive knowledge sponges. They love the work. They love the grind. They love toiling, trying to set up each play, trying to understand the nuances of every play. They wanted to be coached. They wanted to be coached hard. But Ryan was like, whenever the time comes that I would get on the field at a place like Georgia, I would be developed and I would be prepared and he would be ready to perform. Those things, combined in the fact that this family not really looking for, a seismic NIL package in order to come to a school. And what I wrote on DawgNation.com today is it's like we found, history has shown us that the guys that want to be at the University of Georgia, especially at the quarterback position, they succeed more so than the ones that have to be prodded or recruited extensively, or for Georgia to really put the recruiting hammerlock, use some of that black belt recruiting to really intensively recruit and kind of sway a recruit to come here, because things are going to get hard at Georgia. They're going to get hit with adversity. You heard his father Mike, Ryan's father Mike, mention that, and they're ready for that. They're prepared for that. And I think there's no denying the fact that Ryan Montgomery, everything we've known, everything we've heard, we've seen on film, he's a multi-sport athlete. He loves the work. He loves the process. This is a football player interested in playing football and winning games for the University of Georgia, chiefly. And he's kind of true to his word. If you watch him on social media today, Ryan Montgomery is already making moves. We're looking right here. You got Javon Boggs. This is one of Georgia's top targets at receiver in the 2025 class. You see him. He's already dropping some dog emojis on there. That's a receiver. He's working out. He's trying to build that class. Also, if you kind of catch his social media tonight as well, let me make sure I've got it. He's looking at Ryan's working, guys. I don't know how much of his big celebratory steak dinner he's eating, but he's watching an uncommitted wide receiver, and he sees names like Taylon Taylor on there, Travis Smith on there, and he's like, see some future dogs right there. Go Dogs. He's reaching out to other recruits. There's another recruit that made a comment on his social media about hey, young man by the name of Brian Rowe. He's a 2025 prospect, wide receiver prospect out of North Carolina. And he's like, he notices his edit, and Brian Rowe says, "That's tough, brother." And then Ryan Montgomery, I got a reply like 2 hours ago that says, "You next, come home." So Ryan already working, Ryan Montgomery working, trying to build that class. We kind of coined this term many years ago that the quarterback at the University of Georgia, once he commits and commits early, he's got to be the Pied Piper for the class. And we see Ryan Montgomery already working, got his sleeves rolled up, talking to receivers, recruiting for Georgia to help build the class. And, whether or not you agree with the quarterback choice, you wanted the higher-rated guy, you wanted the bigger name, you wanted the flashier game, hey, everybody's welcome to have your opinion. That's what the comment section is for. But it looks like the University of Georgia has made its choice, and Ryan is going to do all he can to kind of help the Dogs get even better and better in the class of 2025. Thought that was pretty cool. That was a really good look at Ryan Montgomery. I want to thank his father, Mike, for his perspective, especially during this busy time right now with all things Ryan. Really good interview there. We'll have more of that goes up on the pages of DawgNation.com as well. But, folks, right there, there you have it. Newsbreaker today, news today with Ryan Montgomery. Georgia has found its 2025 quarterback commitment. And we talked on the show. You look at the headline of this post, all the streams right now here on our social channels. This is why Ryan Montgomery adds to the UGA recruiting momentum. Think about that. A couple weeks ago, Georgia was kind of toiling into Georgia, not so much Georgia level waters. Then they pick up a 2025 commitment in Stefan Shivers. They also pick up a commitment from Jared Curtis in the 2026 class. Mason Short was last week. G-Day momentum builds with Darren Ikinnagbon out of New Jersey. And then today, very quickly, this moved very quickly, guys. You see Ryan Montgomery. I was told that the Ryan Montgomery family wasn't going to wait on the right school. They weren't going to wait on other quarterbacks to make up their mind. They were going to go ahead and make their decision, and they were targeting kind of early May. The Ryan Montgomery kind of team Montgomery there, they'd actually wanted to make their commitment back in February or March. They were still extended out in April. They decided they wanted to make their commitment and get settled in early May. And then really quickly, Georgia reaches out. Hey, yes, he still very much wants to be a Dawg. And then very quickly, basically in a matter of a couple of days, Georgia finds itself with its quarterback commitment for the 2025 class. Hope you guys got to know a little bit more about Ryan Montgomery from that segment. I can hear it in the back of my head. I can hear it. It's not the voice of Kaylee, but it is question of the week time. I want to know, like, kind of, we do this each and every week. We want to talk to you guys and talk with you guys, not just talk at you guys. The question of the week this week is basically, how do you feel about Ryan Montgomery committing to the G? I want to know maybe how you felt earlier today when the news broke, and I want to know how you feel now about learning a little bit more about Ryan, learning a little bit more about his makeup. Do you see what I see? Do you hear what I hear in terms of that's a guy that Georgia has won with, will win with, and continues to win with right now? Everybody's going to look at the rankings because that's kind of the currency of how you evaluate prospects or how you compare prospects. And right now, Ryan Montgomery is the number 185 quarterback in the country. And that's kind of where Carson Beck spent most of his senior year. He had a senior year down at Mandarin High coming off a Mr. Football year where he was all everything in the state of Florida. He led his high school to their first ever state championship in school history. And then a lot of the players that surrounded him moved on, and he was on an offense with not a lot of college football players around him. Struggled initially, didn't really put up great stats, and then he fell to right around number 254 in the country. So already you're talking about a guy that the staff has made some comparisons to Carson Beck. Cerebral approach, kind of the way they play the game, the way they prepare, and the mindset there as well. And you have a player in Ryan Montgomery that's basically at least the same high level of commitment, the same high level of prospect ranking as Carson was when he was in his senior year. So love to see everybody commenting and kind of sharing your thoughts, sharing what you feel, how you feel about the Ryan Montgomery commitment. That's kind of what this show is all about. Gives you guys a chance to listen, learn, absorb, and then make your own conclusions about how you feel about the newest Dawg in the 2025 class. But obviously, Georgia's got some momentum here now on their recruiting trail moving forward. I see some folks in the I see some folks already getting the cruise wind stirred up in the comment section right now. We got some DawgNation cruisers ready to get on that boat on Monday morning. But good to see them in the comment section talking Georgia football recruiting with us tonight as well. Nestor Baldazan, very dignified, very scholarly. Really love it having him on the cruise with us. He says hard work sometimes is better than talent not willing to work. He said, I would rather have those who want to be at Georgia and come to work instead of one who is always looking how the grass is at other places. Good stuff there by Nestor. He knows more things than just fine dining and also how to have a really nice evening out with friends. Thank you for that comment as well, Nestor. Let's move on. We talk about each and every week. We give you guys, this week, it's the shrimp and grits portion of our show. We're going to take a look at what we kind of feel, how the class looks right now. Let's look at the 2025 class breakdown. And, folks, you guys are finally, I'm going to say folks referring to the 2025 prospects, you're finally getting Kaylee's fingers working here on this class breakdown. Starting to fill it up. Just last week, we were able to put the first offensive lineman in the class. Now today, you've got the first quarterback, the quarterback in the class. Of course, Georgia could very well look to add a portal QB this month, or they could add a portal QB to the roster after the 2024 season when the next portal window opens up. But right now, one of the quarterbacks of the future in Athens is Ryan Montgomery. You see 3-star Bo Walker. Got to talk a little bit about Bo Walker. He visited Alabama on G-Day. He has been reported, I believe, Ben Wolk, Stay Wolk of 24/7 Sports, reported that Bo Walker is going to take some more visits. He's going to look around. But right now, that commitment is still there to the University of Georgia. Of course, we can't help but feel that the commitment to Georgia has been weakened with Dell McGee moving on to coach Georgia State. That was just a really strong relationship there. Also, Bo Walker's former high school coach, Coach Adams at Cedar Grove, is now on the staff with Dell McGee at Georgia State as well. We talked about Elias Williams earlier. I thought Georgia did what it needed to. I thought the good vibes were there in that visit. I continue to feel like Elias Williams is a really great fit for this Georgia class. I know people are going to worry about flipping. I know people are going to worry about everybody trying to come at him with everything. But right now, I think that visit to Georgia was a good reinforcement visit there for Todd Hartley and company right there on the offensive side of the ball. Georgia now has 3 4-stars on the offensive side of the ball, 1 3-star and 1 5-star. Let's flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. And now the defense, when you add Darren Ikinnagbon, the guy that reclassified up instead of reclassified back when he was in middle school, 6'6" and some change, 257 pounds. It was pretty funny. His coach, Barris Grant, earlier in the show, Coach Grant said that he passed the eyeball test before he even knew what the eyeball test was. And he also said that the only way he wasn't going to commit to Georgia this past weekend was as if the stadium cracked in half. Never heard that one before. Do love a good quote. Do love a coach with good quotes, and especially creativity right there. Jaden Perlotti was back in Athens for G-Day, as you saw in our kind of G-Day overview of some, pretty candid snapshots and some looks at some of the bigger names that made it. He was there amongst the scrum, amongst the Georgia always, its commitments and a lot of its high-value targets are around those commitments, and the coaches and the staff on game days, really just north of the 50-yard line there on Dooley Field. And you saw Ethan Barbour there. You saw Jaden Perlotti with Elias Williams, with Darren Ikinnagbon, with Mason Short, a lot of members of the class that showed up and showed out for the Dogs there on G-Day. That's your class breakdown. Now let's take a look at the class snapshot. And I think people are starting to no longer look at their screens, look at their iPads, look at their devices and say, there must be a misprint there with class rank, because the class rank, I believe, had swelled even up to number 18 in recent weeks. It dropped down to 17 and then 15. It's now down to 11 on the 24/7 Sports Composite. Of course, the reason for that is Georgia only has 8 commits in the class. Now they have 6 commits in the SEC footprint, 2 commits beyond the SEC footprint. Georgia gets its first quarterback from the Midwest, and really the quarterback prospect from the Midwest since Logan Gray in 2007. You have to go a lot of years before that to find the last time that Georgia took a player at all from the state of Ohio. You see 3 out-of-state commits. You see 5 in-state commits. Look at the breakdown here. You've got Georgia with 1 5-star commitment. That's Elias Williams. They have 1 top 50 commit, still Elias Williams. 2 top 100. That's Jaden Perlotti and Elias Williams. They have 2 top 150s. That's those same 2 gentlemen. And then with the top 200 commits, numbers start to swell. Georgia has 4 in that 150 to 200 range. That's Mason Short. That's Ryan Montgomery. That's Ethan Barbour. And that's Darren Ikinnagbon. Still, Georgia has the most populated state on the Georgia Commitment Board. And there are 3 offensive players right now among Georgia's 5 highest-rated commitments right there. Moving on, it's top targets time. I know you guys love to see a good top targets. And one thing Miss Kaylee said when she saw that is he's like, whoa, this thing is on the Atkins or this thing is on the keto diet. It's lost a little bit of weight. Yeah, when you take a Darren Ikinnagbon off and you take a Ryan Montgomery off, and my perception of this situation going forward is I don't feel like Georgia and Julian Lewis is a good fit anymore. And you move that name off the list, and you have kind of different early top targets. You look at this list right here, Marion Dye out of Indiana, Eugene Hilton Jr. out of Indiana. Those 2 names have stayed the same. Kalen Edwards out of Tennessee. You see Cortez Smith out of Parkview High School. He dips a little bit this week. We moved Bryce Davis of Greensboro, North Carolina up. Dijon Lee, that's the guy that was the big-time 6'4", 6'3" plus cornerback, 5-star out of Mission Viejo. He's the one that wore that 90s R&B diva queen Sadie T-shirt to G-Day. Juan Gaston Jr. out of Atlanta, Georgia, Westlake High School. That's 13 through 7. Let's take a look at 1 through 6 as this board slims down just a little bit with our top early targets for 2025. Of course, number 1 still going to be the same. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that's still David Sanders Jr. I still feel that's a tough commitment. It's going to be a tough commitment for Georgia to get, a tough commitment for Georgia to win. Number 2 there, you see Number 2 there, you see Elijah Griffin out of Savannah Christian. Number 3 is Justice Terry. That's the USC commitment. Still feels weird to kind of verbalize that going over the top early targets for the 2025 class. Zayden Walker, that's another guy that I think, there's a lot of chatter online that makes folks a little worrisome right there. I think Zayden and Georgia still have a pretty good relationship right there. Travis Smith, got to talk a little bit about Travis Smith. We wrote about him and his feelings after the visit. It was another great visit. This was one of those visits where he was really impressed by what Coach James Coley had for him, the program. They looked at a lot of film. They looked at Georgia film. They looked at what Georgia did at G-Day on Saturday. They talked about the plan. They talked about, and then he took it a step further, Coach Coley, and he showed those plays being run by Georgia and then those plays being run, the same plays being run in the NFL. That's how Georgia's offense prepares him for a future on Sundays. He said Coley also told Travis that one of the things about the receiver group at Georgia is they have each other's back. It's a very tight-knit group. Kirby Smart even shouted out the receivers in his post-G-Day briefing where he talked about the receivers are kind of the bullies on the team and how they're kind of the physical guys that the tone setters that normally the defensive backs are at Georgia. And he said, and I kind of, when I was kind of going back and forth with Travis, I kind of said, do you notice that? Do you notice something different about the receiver group, how close-knit they are, how they have everybody's back? And he said, yeah. He said he feels it every time he's at Georgia about how the receivers are a unit and they're a tight-knit group there. So really strong visit there for Georgia with Travis Smith. He has named his official visits for June. He's going to see Auburn, Alabama. Georgia gets the first one on that May 31st to June 2nd weekend. And then Tennessee also gets an official visit right there. Those are your top early targets. You want to talk just off the list? Sure, you want to talk just off the list here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. Zaire Addison, Nikolai Brooks. You see Javon Boggs right there. We showed you that tweet where Ryan Montgomery is already working for the class. That's Javon Boggs. You see the safety, Anquan Newboy Fegans. You see a couple offensive linemen. Christian Garrett out of Prince Avenue Christian. Zion Grady, the 5-star at Enterprise, Alabama. He was also there. So was Eric Winters out of Enterprise, Alabama. Really strong defensive team there at Enterprise in Alabama. Zion Grady's the 5-star in the class of 2025. Malachi Goodman, that's a former high school that the late Devon Willock attended. It's always cool to see a Paramus Catholic prospect on any sort of Georgia top targets list moving forward. Georgia is certainly making a lot of headway in New Jersey. You remember they got two really strong players last year in New Jersey, Nair Daniels and Jordan Thomas. And then you see them this year with a commitment already from Darren Ikinnagbon as well. They're really kind of going out in that Garden State right there. That's just off the list. We got one more slate of just off the list. Usmani Croma out of Lee County. That's a guy Georgia needs to get on campus soon. Jamarian Morrow, he's got his official visit set for Georgia in June. Kind of more of that kind of James Cook type back there. Josh Petty, Jared Taylor, Talon Taylor, and Kevin Wynn. One of the names that Ryan Montgomery was pointing at on a tweet were the uncommitted receivers in the country. He mentioned Talon Taylor was also on that list. And another name there was Ajide, Kevin Wynn out of Greene County, Greensboro, Georgia. That is your top targets and just off the list for this week's show. You guys got any questions? We want to get to you guys right now. I'll make a kind of a lap around trying to catch some questions. Mark Woodmansey, he has he just has a statement. If Georgia flips Terry and they get Elijah Griffin, then he thinks they will have a top 3 class. They're going to have a top 3 class, Mark. Let me just go ahead and dial that one up for you. Tough Stuff wants to know, are other teams still trying to recruit Stefan Shivers? Yeah, they are. I think Ole Miss is going to continue to recruit him. Tennessee as well. Really, to me, though, it seems like that family is really locked in with the University of Georgia. Let me see. Thomas Stew. Hope I got that inflection right there. Is Ryan Montgomery going to start as starting quarterback for Georgia next year? I wouldn't say so. I think leading contenders for Georgia QB1 next year, I would probably say Gunnar Stockton, maybe equal odds with a transfer portal name that comes in either in this month or in the month of December, January, when the portal opens after the 2024 season. You remember Georgia wanted to take a quarterback as well out of the portal. They had a quarterback out of the portal as well. He ended up flipping and going to USC. So I don't think Ryan is going to be should be seen as the starting quarterback, but he's going to work like the Dickens to be the starting quarterback. Let me see. How's it looking with Winters, Jeff? I think it was a good visit. I think you saw him at G-Day, and he really liked what he see. He's kind of moving around. He was getting a lot of good communication from the Georgia commitments and kind of hanging out with the guys. I really think Auburn is trying to make a move. And they got the receivers last year. They're a major player now for Julian Lewis. They're going to be heavy in the NIL space, I believe, for a lot of their top players in state, guys like Zion Grady, guys like Eric Winters. So I really think Auburn and Georgia are going to be the teams to watch there. They've been the teams to watch there for Eric Winters, and that's going to be interesting prospect because he could be a linebacker or a safety depending on the scheme and depending what Georgia would do kind of in its kind of mint looks there. Yeah, Mark, I have heard Georgia has reached out to the Penn State wide receiver that placed his name in the portal. That's a guy that I think the claim to fame he has is he's the only Penn State receiver, I believe, to have multiple catches of 80-plus yards. Keandre Lambert-Smith. Really, if I think Georgia and its needs in the portal, I don't immediately go to wide receiver. You look at what Georgia had with Sokovie White and Anthony Evans and then Michael Jackson. All those guys made a lot of catches. They had Ra Thomas show out. You got Dominic Lovett. You got London Humphreys. Tyler Williams probably had to look at that and say, with all those portal guys coming in and they're getting run ahead of him, it kind of made sense for him to make that decision. You got to remember, Tyler also committed to BMAC to play receiver in the Georgia class. And Georgia, and of course, BMAC's now with Tampa Bay in the NFL, and James Coley's there as well. So, there's a lot of moving parts to that one right there. I think, the way Georgia would look is I think quarterback, I think impact defensive lineman, but of course that's what everybody says. But anybody would take an impact defensive lineman at any time. Those guys just don't come out of the portal. I think safety would be something to look at in terms of potentially the right safety. I think Georgia likes what it has with corners. I would definitely, after seeing Ellis Robinson IV and Daniel Harris, those two guys, you're not going to get any more impressive prospects on the hoof. Eyeball test is what Coach Grant said earlier. I think Georgia is well stocked at corner when then you add Dalen Everett and Julian Humphrey to the mix right there. I thought KJ Bolden looked great. I thought Dan Jackson looked great. Ja'Cory Thomas is going to help Georgia and play very good football as well. You saw David Daniels, Savannah. David was actually not able to play on Saturday or not play much on Saturday. I believe he was dealing with an injury. So Georgia's got a lot of options. I think really Georgia's going to get interested depending on the names that come into the portal. And so hopefully that answers your question. Let me see if I can hop on to Facebook and see what you guys have to say. Maybe I'll see some DawgNation cruisers in the Facebook session as well. Phil Rogers makes the comment that Kirby needs to get the players who want to wear the G. Wayne Folan, I think by learning a little bit about these young men today, Wayne, I think you were probably talking about Ryan Montgomery, but Wayne Folan puts his stamp on the new Georgia commitment there as well. Ricky Byram has welcomed Ryan Montgomery to Georgia and DawgNation. A lot of welcomes all around here. Jerry Popham, hey, man, hope you're doing great. The running back position, I mean, yeah, everybody, we got some comments here in the running back position. Remember this name, Nathan Frazier. Guy's up to about 5'8", 5'9", about 208 pounds, 209 pounds, running about 10.6s, 10.7s right now. I believe he was clocked at a 10.75. More running back talent to come. And you look at the decision made by Andrew Paul today, and again, coach no longer at Georgia, new coach there. The guy that recruited him is not there. Of course, these athletes are not going to feel the same type of ties to the room when the head coach that they committed to and played for and earned their Georgia offer from is no longer there. And then with Andrew, I think he's very talented. I think he had 4 carries for 44 yards at G-Day. But you think about Frazier, you think about Bowens, you think about, Trevor Etienne, you think about Roderick Robinson, Branson Robinson coming back. You know, I've heard people tell me that Robinson feels like he's going to be able to do a lot during fall camp. I don't know if that's a full go green light. I don't know if Georgia will put him in that position as a full go green light in fall camp, but I think you're going to see Robinson work his way back, potentially, early season, mid-season there as well. So the running back position, I don't think Georgia's in dire need of running backs as well. Guys, bingo card we got filled up today. We had somebody tell us about the eyeball test. We had Winnie the dog from Ryan Montgomery's commitment ceremony in Findlay, Ohio, make an appearance. We heard somebody say that this kid was going to commit to Georgia in case the stadium ruptured or something like that, with the stadium broke in half or something like that. Very interesting, the collection of information we were able to share today. We got to show you some practice video, some camp video from Stefan Shivers. That's the major Georgia commitment in the 2025 class. Hope you enjoyed hanging out. Hope you enjoyed spending some time with us here on DawgNation Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. Go get to your local Kroger. Go do what you do. Go fill up the shopping cart, kind of like the way Kirby Smart is filling up the shopping cart right now with commitments for the 2025 class. Hope you guys have a great night. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed G-Day. Really enjoyed meeting and saying hi to a lot of you guys that stopped to say hi around the stadium, between the hedges as well on Saturday. You guys are the reason why we do what we do here each and every week on DawgNation. Folks, that's been your intel. I'm Jeff Sentell, and we'll see you guys again later on the pages of DawgNation.com.